I want him to suffer like he made my baby suffer. I want him to hurt. I don't want it to be easy for him. I want him to suffer. He needs to suffer.
Such a sad story here. She was the mother, shot and killed 2 days after giving birth to her newborn daughter, Kennedy Hoyle.
I took my daughter and threw her into the Mississippi River. These are the actual words that came out of Brandon Isabel's mouth when police questioned him about the disappearance of baby Kennedy Hoyle. Not an accident, not a moment of panic, a cold, deliberate confession about throwing his own newborn child into alligator-infested waters. But that wasn't even the worst part of his confession. Just hours before disposing of his infant daughter, Brandon had lured Kennedy's mother, 27-year-old Danielle Hoyle, to a dark intersection in Memphis. He promised her baby clothes for their newborn. Instead, he fired 5 bullets into her car, killing her instantly. Brandon's motive for destroying his own family wasn't money, wasn't revenge, and wasn't even rage. The real reason he murdered the mother of his child and threw his baby into the river will shock you to your core. And the evidence that finally brought him down? It came from the most unexpected place you could ever think of. Welcome to our channel. Right now there are thousands of women like Danielle who are trusting partners who secretly resent their children and see them as obstacles to their happiness, completely unaware that this resentment could turn deadly. If you want to help spread awareness about the warning signs that new mothers face and the dangers that could threaten both them and their babies, then please like this video, share it, and subscribe to this channel. Your action now could help protect another mother and child who might be in danger. February 1st, 2022, Memphis, Tennessee. A city that would soon witness one of the most heartbreaking crimes in its history. Danielle Hoyle was just 27 years old when her life was cut short. She was a devoted mother to her 10-year-old daughter and had just welcomed her second child into the world. Baby Kennedy was only 2 days old, so tiny she weighed just 6 pounds and measured 17 inches long. She had brown hair and brown eyes, just like her mother. Danielle lived in Whitehaven with her mother, April Campbell, who helped care for her granddaughters. The family was close-knit, and April spoke to Danielle multiple times every day. They were the kind of family that checked in on each other constantly. Brandon Isabel was 25 years old and worked at FedEx alongside Danielle. That's where they met and began their relationship. When Danielle became pregnant with Kennedy, their relationship became complicated. Brandon wasn't ready to be a father, and he made that very clear to everyone around him. On February 1st, Danielle had just been released from the hospital with baby Kennedy. She was adjusting to life as a mother of 2, trying to balance caring for her newborn while making sure her older daughter felt loved and supported. That evening, around 6 p.m., Danielle left her home in Whitehaven. She told her mother she was taking Kennedy to the hospital for more testing. It was a routine trip that should have taken a couple of hours at most. She would never make it home. To understand what happened that night, we need to go back to where it all started, the FedEx facility where both Danielle and Brandon worked. Their relationship began as a workplace romance. They were co-workers who started spending time together, and eventually their friendship turned into something more intimate. But this wasn't a love story with a happy ending. This was a relationship that would end in tragedy. When Danielle discovered she was pregnant, Brandon's reaction wasn't what she hoped for. Instead of excitement or support, Brandon made it clear that he didn't want to be a father. He wasn't ready for the responsibility, and he definitely wasn't ready to commit to Danielle. But there was another problem that made everything worse. Brandon was also involved with another FedEx employee named Artecha Stewart. According to prosecutors, Brandon considered Artecha the perfect woman and wanted to be with her instead of Danielle. The pregnancy complicated everything because it tied him to Danielle in a way he didn't want. Brandon's true feelings about the pregnancy became clear through text messages that were later recovered by police. In these messages, Brandon told Danielle that he needed to be a father of his own child and actually asked her to get an abortion. He didn't want Kennedy to be born because it would interfere with his plans to be with Arteacha. These weren't just casual comments. These were serious conversations where Brandon made it obvious that he saw Kennedy as a problem that needed to be solved, not as his daughter who deserved love and care. Kennedy was born just 2 days before the murder. Danielle had spent those 48 hours in the hospital recovering from childbirth and bonding with her newborn daughter. She was released on February 1st, the same day she would be killed. During those 2 days, Brandon knew that Kennedy had been born. He knew that Danielle was now a mother of 2, and he knew that his life was about to change whether he wanted it to or not. The birth of Kennedy meant that Brandon would always be connected to Danielle, and that connection threatened his relationship with Arteacha. The Apple Watch messages that police later found showed just how desperate Brandon had become. He didn't just not want to be a father, he actively resented Kennedy's existence. These messages would later become crucial evidence in court, showing that Brandon had been planning something terrible long before that night in February. What Brandon did next would shock everyone who knew him and leave a family destroyed forever. Around 6 p.m. that evening, Danielle told her mother she needed to take Kennedy back to the hospital for more testing. This wasn't unusual. Newborns often need follow-up appointments and additional tests in their first few days of life. April didn't think anything of it when Danielle left the house with Kennedy in her car seat. But what April didn't know was that Danielle wasn't just going to the hospital. Brandon had contacted Danielle earlier that day with what seemed like a kind gesture. He told her he had baby clothes for Kennedy and wanted to give them to her. He also said he wanted to see his newborn daughter. For Danielle, this must have felt like a breakthrough. After months of Brandon rejecting the pregnancy and refusing to take responsibility, he was finally showing interest in Kennedy. Maybe he was ready to step up and be a father after all. Maybe things could work out between them. At 7:30 p.m., April called Danielle to check on her. Danielle answered the phone and told her mother, "Yeah, Mom, I'm trying to get the baby out the car and get her in the hospital." This was the last time April would ever hear her daughter's voice. But Danielle wasn't at the hospital. She was at the intersection of Sedgwick Drive and Levi Road in Whitehaven, a dark and isolated area where Brandon had asked her to meet him. He had convinced her to come to this location before going to the hospital, telling her he would give her the baby clothes and spend some time with Kennedy. After 7:30 p.m., April tried calling and texting Danielle multiple times. Every call went unanswered. Every text message was ignored. This wasn't like Danielle at all. She always stayed in touch with her mother, especially when she was out with the baby. As the hours passed, April's worry grew stronger. By 9 p.m., she was calling constantly. By 10 p.m., she was sending text after text. By 11 p.m., she was in full panic mode. Something was terribly wrong. At 11:30 p.m., April's worst fears were confirmed when Memphis police officers knocked on her door. They asked her what kind of car Danielle drove and if she knew where her daughter might be. The officers had found Danielle's tan Chevrolet Cruze abandoned on the side of the road with a broken window. What the officers didn't tell April right away was that they had also found Danielle's body in a ditch next to the car. She had been shot multiple times and was already dead. Kennedy was nowhere to be found. The timeline of that evening shows just how carefully Brandon had planned everything. He knew exactly when to contact Danielle, exactly where to ask her to meet him, and exactly how to get her away from her family without raising suspicion. What would you do if someone you trusted lured you into danger? Let me know in the comments below. By midnight, what started as a routine hospital visit had turned into a double murder investigation. Danielle was dead, Kennedy was missing, and Brandon Isabel was about to become the prime suspect in one of Memphis's most horrific crimes. What happened at the intersection of Sedgwick Drive and Levi Road that night was beyond anything most people could ever imagine. Danielle arrived at the meeting spot in her tan Chevrolet Cruze with baby Kennedy in the back seat. She parked on the wrong side of the road, facing the opposite direction. This suggests she was planning to make this a quick stop, just grab the baby clothes from Brandon and head to the hospital. Brandon pulled up in his own vehicle and got out, but he wasn't carrying any baby clothes. Instead, he was carrying a gun. According to Brandon's own confession to police, he walked up to Danielle's car and opened the passenger door. Without any warning or conversation, he fired 5 shots into the vehicle. The bullet struck Danielle in the face and head, killing her instantly. After shooting Danielle, Brandon dragged her body out of the car and left her face down in a ditch beside the road. Her bright pink shoes were the only thing visible in the darkness when police later found her. But Brandon wasn't finished. He went back to Danielle's car and took Kennedy, who was still strapped in her car seat. The 2-day-old baby was completely helpless and had no idea what had just happened to her mother. Brandon placed Kennedy's car seat in his own vehicle and drove away from the murder scene. His destination was Mud Island, specifically the Upper Mud Island boat ramp, where the Wolf River meets the Mississippi River. When Brandon arrived at the boat ramp, he took Kennedy out of her car seat. This tiny baby, who weighed only 6 pounds and was wearing a black and white polka dot onesie with pink pants, was about to become the victim of an unthinkable crime. Brandon threw Kennedy into the Mississippi River, his own daughter, a helpless newborn who had been alive for only 48 hours. After disposing of Kennedy, Brandon also threw the murder weapon into the water near the Wolf River Delta. He was trying to destroy all the evidence of what he had done. The entire crime, from the moment Brandon shot Danielle to the moment he threw Kennedy into the river, was planned and executed with cold precision. This wasn't a crime of passion or a moment of panic. This was a deliberate decision to eliminate both Danielle and Kennedy from his life so he could be with Artesia Stewart. Brandon then drove home, probably thinking he had gotten away with the perfect crime. Around midnight on February 1st, Officer Cody Sutton was on patrol in the Whitehaven area when he spotted something unusual. A tan Chevrolet Cruze was parked on the left side of Sedgwick Street, facing the wrong direction. The car had a broken window, and there was blood visible on the driver's seat. Officer Sutton ran the license plate and discovered the car was registered to Danielle Hoyle. He immediately called for backup and began searching the area around the vehicle. That's when he made the horrific discovery. Danielle's body was lying face down in a ditch next to her car. Paramedic Vishon Cole and driver Mario Foster from the Memphis Fire Department arrived at the scene shortly after. They quickly determined that Danielle was already dead. At 12:06 a.m. on February 2nd, they officially declared her time of death. While officers were processing the crime scene, other police were already at April Campbell's house. They had traced Danielle's address from the car registration and needed to ask April about her daughter's whereabouts. When April told them that Danielle had left with baby Kennedy to go to the hospital, the officers realized they were dealing with more than just a murder. They had a missing newborn. By the morning of February 2nd, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation issued an Amber Alert for Kennedy Hoyle. The alert described her as a 2-day-old baby girl, 6 pounds, 17 inches long, with brown hair and brown eyes. She was last seen wearing a black and white polka dot onesie with pink pants. The search for Kennedy became massive. Memphis police officers, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation agents, and Shelby County Sheriff's Office deputies all joined the effort. A dive team was brought in to search the waters around Mud Island, focusing on the boat ramp area where the Wolf River meets the Mississippi River. The search expanded when family members made another heartbreaking discovery. Kennedy's car seat was found abandoned at a Walmart in Whitehaven. April Campbell confirmed that the car seat belonged to her granddaughter, which meant whoever took Kennedy had removed her from the safety of her car seat. For 5 days, search teams worked in freezing temperatures, combing through the Mississippi River and surrounding areas. They used boats, divers, and specialized equipment, but Kennedy's body was never found. The river had claimed the tiny victim, and her family would never have the closure of laying her to rest. While search teams were desperately looking for Kennedy, Memphis police were focusing their investigation on the one person who had the most to gain from Danielle and Kennedy's disappearance, Brandon Isabel. On February 2nd, just one day after the murder, police brought Brandon in for questioning. What happened next shocked even experienced detectives who had seen the worst of human behavior. Brandon waived his rights and agreed to talk to investigators. Instead of denying involvement or asking for a lawyer, he did something that stunned everyone in the room. He confessed to everything. Brandon admitted to police that he had lured Danielle to the intersection of Sedgwick Drive and Levi Road. He told them he had promised her baby clothes for Kennedy, but that was just a lie to get her to meet him. He confessed to shooting Danielle multiple times, killing her at the scene. But the confession didn't stop there. Brandon also admitted to taking Kennedy from Danielle's car after the murder. He told police he drove his newborn daughter to the Upper Mud Island boat ramp where the Wolf River meets the Mississippi River. Then, in his own words, he tossed Kennedy into the water. Brandon even confessed to throwing the murder weapon into the river near the Wolf River Delta, trying to destroy the evidence of his crimes. Based on his confession and the evidence at the crime scene, Brandon was immediately arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, murder in perpetration of aggravated kidnapping, especially aggravated kidnapping, and tampering with evidence. The news of Brandon's arrest and confession spread quickly through Memphis. The community was outraged that someone could murder the mother of his child and then throw his own newborn baby into the river. Many people couldn't understand how a father could do something so horrible to his own daughter. Brandon was held without bond at the Shelby County Criminal Justice Complex, where he would wait for his trial. More than 3 years after the murders, Brandon Isabel's trial finally began on September 23, 2025, at Shelby County Criminal Court. Judge Carlin L. Addison presided over the case, and the jury consisted of 10 women and 4 men. Brandon faced multiple charges, 2 counts of first-degree murder, aggravated child abuse and neglect, and aggravated kidnapping. Despite his earlier confession to police, he pleaded not guilty to all charges. The prosecution, led by the Shelby County District Attorney's Office, built their case around Brandon's own confession and the physical evidence found at the crime scene. They argued that Brandon's motive was clear. He wanted to avoid responsibility for Kennedy and maintain his relationship with Ardisha Stewart, the other FedEx employee he considered the perfect woman. One of the most important pieces of evidence came from an unexpected source: Danielle's Apple Watch. After the murder, Danielle's mother, April Campbell, gave the watch to police. When investigators examined it, they found text message conversations between Danielle and Brandon that revealed his true feelings about the pregnancy. Sergeant Jeremy Klein from the Memphis Police Department Homicide Bureau testified about these messages. He told the court that Brandon had asked Danielle to get an abortion and said he needed to be a father of his own child. These messages showed that Brandon saw Kennedy as a problem, not as his daughter. The defense team focused on challenging the reliability of Brandon's confession and questioning the evidence. They pointed out that some of the text messages didn't have clear timestamps, making it difficult to know exactly when they were sent. They also emphasized that Kennedy's body had never been found, which made it harder to prove exactly what happened to her. Several key witnesses testified during the trial. Officer Cody Sutton described finding Danielle's abandoned car and her body in the ditch. Paramedic Vishon Cole explained how he and his team determined that Danielle was already dead when they arrived at the scene. Driver Mario Foster testified about examining the crime scene and identifying Danielle's body. The prosecution also presented physical evidence, including blood found on socks and Adidas slides at the crime scene that belonged to Danielle. This evidence helped establish the timeline of events and supported Brandon's confession about what happened that night. Throughout the trial, the defense reminded the jury that the burden of proof was on the state and that they needed to be absolutely certain of Brandon's guilt before convicting him. Throughout this entire nightmare, no one suffered more than April Campbell, Danielle's mother. She lost her daughter and her granddaughter in one horrific night, and her pain was visible every day of the investigation and trial. During the search for Kennedy, April stood near the Mud Island boat ramp, moving back and forth between the crime scene where Danielle was killed and the river where Kennedy had been thrown. Her words to reporters revealed the depth of her heartbreak. Speaking directly to Brandon, April said, "You didn't have to hurt her. You didn't want to take care of your child. You didn't want to be in her life. You should have left her alone."
You didn't want to take care of your child. You didn't want to be in her life. You should have left her alone.
April's voice broke when she talked about all the places Kennedy could have been left safely. She mentioned fire stations, police stations, anywhere but the Mississippi River. "I just want to know where my grandbaby is. That's all I want," she said. The family's pain was made worse by the fact that Kennedy's body was never found. Without being able to hold Kennedy one last time or give her a proper burial, the family couldn't find closure. Danielle's 10-year-old daughter also became a victim of Brandon's crimes. She lost her mother and baby sister and now had to grow up without them both. Danielle and Kennedy's story shows us how important it is to pay attention to warning signs in relationships. Brandon's text messages asking for an abortion and saying he didn't want to be a father were clear red flags that something was wrong. When someone expresses anger or resentment about a pregnancy or when they try to pressure someone into ending a pregnancy, these are serious warning signs that shouldn't be ignored. Friends and family members need to take these situations seriously and offer support to the person who might be in danger. Safe haven laws exist in all 50 states to prevent tragedies like this one. These laws allow parents to leave newborn babies at safe locations like hospitals, fire stations, and police stations without facing criminal charges. If Brandon had used these resources instead of committing murder, Kennedy would still be alive today. Communities can help by making sure people know about these safe haven options and by supporting new mothers who might be in difficult situations. Sometimes just having someone to talk to can make all the difference. What state or country are you watching from? Are there better support systems for new mothers in your area? Share your thoughts below. Early intervention and community support can save lives and prevent families from experiencing the kind of tragedy that destroyed the Hoyle family forever. Danielle Hoyle was just 27 years old when her life was cut short. She was a loving mother who deserved to watch her daughters grow up together. Kennedy Hoyle was only 2 days old when she was taken from this world. She deserved the chance to live, to laugh, to experience all the joys that life has to offer. Their story reminds us that domestic violence can happen to anyone, anywhere. It shows us how quickly a situation can turn deadly when warning signs are ignored. Brandon Isabel's trial is still ongoing as of September 2025. The jury is currently hearing evidence and witness testimony to determine his fate. The Hoyle family continues to attend court sessions, searching for justice and accountability for the destruction of their family. If this case has affected you, please hit the subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest true crime stories. Your support helps us continue telling these important stories and keeping the memory of victims like Danielle and Kennedy alive.